Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. Thanks very much for joining us today. I really hope that the information that we're going to share will be helpful and valuable for you. Before we get started, though, just a couple of housekeeping items. There is a chat function in the online meeting, and so as I'm going through my webinar presentation, please feel free to use that chat to submit questions. And Jill will compile those questions as we go through, and about halfway through the presentation, we'll address any questions that you have, as well as at the end, we will have some time for Q&A. And then the second thing, if you haven't already, please mute your line during the webinar, and feel free to open that up at the end for voice questions and conversation. So with that, let's get started. My name is Tom Massapust, and I am the project, or actually the practice leader at New Resources Consulting for our OCM practice. There we go. I was having a little bit of a difficulty getting the slide to advance, but we're set now. I have about 28 years of overall experience in program and project management. I'm also a certified Scrum Master. Done a lot of work around strategic and tactical planning, and I've been doing organizational change management work for approximately the last 15 or 16 years. And I'm also certified in the ProSci or OCM methodology and tool set. So if there are any services that I can help provide you with, I would love the opportunity to talk to you about that. NRC, or New Resources Consulting, is a firm of about 200 consultants. We offer management and IT consulting services on a national basis. We have offices in Milwaukee, Winston-Salem, and Overland Park, Kansas. We have been identified as an established industry and workplace leader. And in the Milwaukee area, we've been identified as one of the best places to work. So, what are we going to cover today? Well, as you know, our topic is how to create an OCM practice and survive to talk about it. So specifically, we're going to cover 4 topical areas related to establishing your OCM practice. This presentation is geared toward companies and individuals who are early in the process or just considering implementing change management within their organization. First, we'll go through a brief overview of why OCM is important. What is OCM? Try to give it a definition. And also, using the best context when talking about OCM is very important, so people gain an understanding of what it really is and what it is not. Some of this will be somewhat elementary for those of you who have a background in change management. It will be a review, but for those that don't, I think it sets a very good foundational area to launch off of the rest of our conversation. Then we'll go into 7 reasons for establishing an OCM practice, and we'll talk about its return on investment for your organization. We'll also talk about utilizing a project approach to establish your project or your practice, how to plan for your practice. So we'll talk about what services to provide, where it should live, how it should be organized, who does the work, and specifically we'll talk about specific roles and the responsibilities of those roles in establishing your practice. And then lastly, we'll talk about we'll identify the top contributors to OCM success. We'll wrap up with questions and answers after that. We are living in a time of great change, bigger change, faster change, more complex change than ever before. And at the same time, we're more connected and processing more information than ever before. To be successful in this environment, organizations must grow their ability to change, not just to survive, but more importantly, to thrive. Research performed by multiple respected organizations point out the importance and value of change management. In a recent PricewaterhouseCoopers survey of 1,150 CEOs, 76% of them said that their ability to adapt to change will be a key source of competitive advantage in the future. A study by McKinsey found that 9 of 10 executives said organizational change is critical to business success, and it's also growing in importance. And the recent PMI Organizational Agility Report introduced the following equation. Greater organizational ability equals better performance equals improved competitive advantage. So I think these are topics that you can take to your leadership in support of establishing a change management practice or pilot. So what is OCM? For purposes of this discussion, we'll think of it at 2 levels. On a project level, OCM is the application of a structured process and set of tools for leading the people side of change to achieve a desired outcome. And we'll talk a lot more about what I mean by the people side of change. But on an organizational level, it's a leadership competency for enabling change within an organization and a strategic capability designed to increase change capacity and responsiveness. So simply said, OCM is taking control of the people side of change. It's a key component to an effective OCM project approach. You must be able to understand and be able to communicate and articulate why the change is occurring, what is changing, how the change will occur, who will be impacted, and how they will be impacted, and then lastly, when the change will occur. We'll talk about all of these bullet points more in following slides. This last bullet point on this slide is probably the most important from this slide, and that is that effective leadership and sponsorship of implementing a change management practice is essential to success. You really are going to require the support and active involvement from executive leadership. So what's the right context to use when talking about change management? I've learned from experience that many people, particularly those in leadership, may think of change management as having a very soft benefit that's difficult to measure. The way you talk about change management, the context you use, is critically important. We need to talk about it in terms of measurement, like return on investment, benefit realization, results, outcomes, and organizational value. The list provides the necessary context for senior leaders and project leaders because it's what they care about, and in the end, it's what they're evaluated on. So think about these 2 following statements as an example. The first one, we need change management on Project X to address resistance and improve morale. Very valid points and reasons, but pretty soft and difficult to measure. Versus the second statement, we need change management on Project X to ensure benefit realization and improve ROI. Now, those benefit realizations and ROI are very measurable and can easily be proven when doing a change management pilot. While both are true, the second one appeals to the concerns of the project leaders and executives and is likely to result in greater commitment and a higher priority. So why would you want to deploy change management within your organization? Building support and momentum for establishing change is going to be difficult, and it just takes a significant effort. So here are 7 compelling reasons that I believe you can use for establishing a change practice within your company. Each of these is stated in a generic manner, but you will need to take the concept of each of the 7 and customize it to your specific needs and situation, so that it is very specific to exactly what you're trying to accomplish. So the first one of the 7 is driving more successful change. And what I mean here is driving change, being a change agent, and being more successful in implementing that change than in past efforts. So data and experience show that effective change management drives greater benefit realization and achievement of results and outcomes. We're also able to handle the amount of change that's occurring. So as we talked early in this, we talked about the capacity for change, the significant amount of change that's happening today. So having a way to handle that gives us an ability to increase our capacity for change. If people are just saturated with change, they're likely to be frustrated and may even leave the organization. So a change management approach will allow the company to become better at implementing change, which is becoming an essential skill or capacity. Addressing the costs of poorly managed change. We've all been in companies or all have experience with implementing changes that have not gone well, or that were poorly managed and did not deliver the results and created stress and confusion in the organization. So under-delivering on change is not really considered, is not tolerable going forward. So a consistent approach for deploying change management will help you address those and be more successful and effective at it. Number 4 is aligning OCM with organizational values. This is particularly important for companies who state employees are of the highest value in the organization. A recent client of mine likes to think of employees as family and treats them as family. And so for them, this is a really important reason for deploying change management. It's a matter of respecting the entire company, all the employees, and doing their best to help employees through this change process. Number 5, preparing the organization for the future. The future of many organizations, and in some cases even industries, includes significant changes that are necessary for it to remain competitive and successful. Creating consistent and efficiencies within our approach. So change management across an organization is more effective when there's a standard approach and it's applied in a consistent manner. And then lastly, building needed internal capabilities. So change management is viewed as an essential organizational capability, and individual competency for each employee is needed and is a priority. So if you can kind of sell or pitch all of these or any portion of these, I think it will significantly help in getting the support and the sponsorship you'll need going forward. So let's talk a little bit about the return on investment related to change management. The bottom line is, in order to pitch it successfully and get the support you need, you've got to make it measurable. Establish clear, measurable ways of measuring success. The readiness will speed startup time and lessen the learning curve. The speed of adoption is key to project return on investment, and the speed of adoption can easily be measured and proven. OCM drives greater utilization of the change, which is also easily measured. In fact, I've done projects implementing new systems where we were able to actually measure the utilization of the change and establish a reporting dashboard and give that to executive leadership as proof of the return on our OCM efforts, which can also be applied to proficiency in using whatever the change is. Through some basic testing, it's quite doable and can also be reported back to leadership. But when you have adoption, utilization, and proficiency, your change will provide the expected return on investment. Without those three components, it will fall far short of the expected return on investment. So now let's talk about a project approach to establishing your practice. On one hand, companies are trying to implement change as quickly as possible. And on the other hand, employees are a step behind, trying to understand why the change is needed, where the organization is going, and how they will be impacted. It's imperative that we connect the dots between leadership and individual contributors while showing hard and measurable business results. I suggest that you give some very significant thought to understanding what project would be a great project to use as a pilot and implement change management concepts within that project. So identify the project, understand its purpose, and identify why the changes are occurring and what is changing and what is not changing, which is the particulars of the project. And then I also identify who will be changing. So what is the project? Why are we doing it? What are we doing? And who will be doing it, or who will be impacted? This is ProSci's project change triangle. And really, the bottom line is to illustrate the importance of all three of these components. It's meant to be a three-legged stool, and without any leg, the stool will fall over. So it won't be, your project will not be as successful as it could be. The leadership and sponsorship provides the guidance and governance that's needed. Project management gives the structure to the technical side of the change, and change management supports the people side of the change. But when you have all three of those elements, your projects will meet objectives, projects are likely to finish on time and on budget, and you'll achieve the anticipated return on investment. I think this slide does a great job of showing how project management and change management can come together to achieve the desired business results. We're all familiar with the project management side of things, the technical side. We have processes like the initiation of a project, planning and executing and closing of projects. We have tools that we're all familiar with, a statement of work, a project charter, work breakdown structure, budget, resource allocation, schedules, all those tools that are pretty typical to projects. On the people side, change management brings similar but different processes and tools to the table. We have all types of, we have many processes geared around preparing for the change, managing the change, and then reinforcing the change. The tools that we'll use will be readiness assessment, things like readiness assessment, communication plans, sponsorship roadmaps and plans, coaching plans, training, strategies for managing resistance, and then strategies for reinforcing the ultimate change. Our goal is to bring project management and change management together, starting from early in the process of a project, and then in its current state, through the kind of messy transition state of when the changes are occurring, to get to that vision of the future state. When we're successful at doing that, the solution is designed, developed, and delivered effectively, the technical side, and it is embraced, adopted, and utilized effectively by the people impacted on it. When those two things happen and come together, you have project success. And when trying to set up your practice, it's important to talk with the project management professionals in your organization and establish an understanding that change management and project management have a joint value proposition toward achieving business results. Based on research that ProSci has done, organizations that have a highly effective change management practice within them are 6 times more likely to meet or exceed project objectives. So as you can see on this chart, on the horizontal axis is companies that on the left have a poor change management effectiveness, moving to the right up to excellent. And then on the vertical axis is the percentage of companies who reported being able to meet or exceed project objectives. In the same type of chart, companies with excellent change management are 5 times more likely to deliver projects on or ahead of schedule. And they are 60% more effective at bringing in projects at or below budget. So as you can see, there is real data behind this. So do we have any questions at this point? Any comments? All right, well, I hear crickets, so we'll keep going. I would encourage any questions that you have, please feel free to utilize that chat feature, and then we will cover them at the end. So what services should your practice provide? Well, I suggest that any change management practice would own and maintain the methodology and tools that you'll be using within the company. I do think it's very important to have a standardized approach so that you can effectively communicate that approach and train people to use it. I think you'll want to provide consultative support to project teams and provide trained change management resources on specific projects. If possible, I think it would be great to establish and maintain a change management community within your company. Provide coaching to sponsors and managers. Track change management progress and report on that project progress. And then track and manage your change portfolio. I do think it's extremely important to be specific about the objectives of your practice by drafting a formal charter and communicating that charter. In addition, I think it would be a great thing to draft what I call an elevator pitch. Elevator pitch is a brief description or explanation of your practice, objectives and benefits. So it's very short and concise, and it's something that could be delivered on an elevator ride. So where should your practice live? Here, I think there's really no right or wrong answer. It really depends on your organization and where it would best fit for your needs. Some typical examples of where it could live would be the PMO or human resources. Sometimes it resides in IT or your strategy organization. Operations or organizational development are all viable options. Some things to consider, topics to consider when making a recommendation of where it should live. You will want it to be placed in an organization where you have cross-enterprise or cross-organizational reach. Access to projects, alignment with company purpose and strategy, as well as a strong reputation, credibility, and respect. You'll also want direct access to your sponsor and to other executives within the company. How should your practice be organized? Here also, I don't really think there's a right or wrong answer. However, I do suggest that there be one OCM leader that is clearly identified to provide direction and guidance early in the process of establishing the practice. I suggest that you consider starting with a small centralized group that can expand as proficiency is gained and a library of standardized project approach and processes and deliverables can be established. So a small centralized group will allow you to kick off faster and in a more organized fashion, and then you can move into a more decentralized, or what I call a hybrid approach to organizing across an enterprise. I think this is especially important in organizations that have multiple locations, physical locations. If you can create a center of excellence or a hub of change management knowledge and then grow from that hub out to other locations, I think that is a preferred approach. And who does the work? Well, the honest answer is everybody in the company ultimately will be involved in supporting change. From executives and senior managers to middle managers and supervisors. I might also mention middle managers and supervisors are key here. If you can convince them to support your change management initiative and the use of change management in a project, those middle managers and supervisors can be great evangelists to helping convince staff members, other employees, to support the change as well. These middle managers will have the pulse of the organization and have direct connection with the other employees in the company. So that's a very powerful relationship to utilize. Obviously, the project team is very involved and project support functions. But you'll see in the middle, the gear or cog in the middle that brings everything together are the change management resources. So in a project, in establishing your change management practice, utilizing a project approach, what should the team structure be like in the project that you choose to be your pilot? So what I have drawn here is you have a project team with a sponsor. The yellow oval is the change management resources. You could certainly organize this way, option 1, where the change resources are separate from the core project team. One of the advantages of this is that the change team has direct access to the sponsor, as well as direct access to the project team. However, I feel the disadvantage of this type of organization is that many times during the course of a project, when things get hectic and busy, the project team won't make time necessary to keep the change resources informed and involved in whatever's going on. And so there can become a disconnect or misunderstandings between what's happening in the project, between the project team and the change resources. To counteract that, you can certainly put the change resources within the core project team. So we have the advantage here of the change resources really being tied into the project and keeping their fingers on the pulse of what's going on. There's a couple of disadvantages to this. One is that typically in this type of an organization or structure, the change lead person loses direct contact with the sponsor and typically has to go through the project manager. Well, that, I believe, is a strong detractor from this type of a structure. The third option, I think, is the best. Here, the change resources are part of the core project team, but the change leader retains direct access to the sponsor. So he or she can provide feedback on project issues from the people side of things and progress. The next few slides will talk about specific roles within a change management practice and what the responsibilities of those roles should be. Change sponsors, as I've said multiple times already this morning, will be incredibly important to your success. It's important that they remain active and visible, that they are able to build guiding coalitions with peers, communicate effectively throughout the project, and promote the value of change management to the organization. The change practitioner, which likely may be you, will need to apply a consistent approach and methodology to projects, promote the adoption and usage of those change management tools and methods, and establish a consistent mindset of what change management is within the organization. Probably, most importantly, deliver high-impact results and outcomes on your change initiatives. Change management trainers will need to deliver high-quality training for everybody really in the organization. People managers, project managers, team members, and staff employees. You will probably want to tailor the change management training for each of those groups. Project managers will need to integrate change management concepts into their project execution. And then project teams will need to gain a foundational understanding of the change management principles and use that to help them adopt and adapt to change. Same thing with people managers and individual contributors. It's really important to learn and understand the change management framework so that they can adopt and adapt. So, kind of in summary, here's a list of action steps that you must undertake to integrate people and roles related to change management. I suggest you start by evaluating the nature of changes going on with the organization. And once you've evaluated those, Decide on the best structure for the relationship between project resources and change management resources. Clearly define your roles and responsibilities in those relationships. By clearly establishing who will be doing what, you create better expectations and foster better working relationships. Be present and involved. As the change management resource on the project, be sure that you're engaged and involved with project activity so that change management has a presence and that you're building credibility and respect. Ensure that executive sponsorship. Regardless of the decision on structure, adequate sponsorship for change gives credibility and support for what you're working so hard to achieve. Top contributors to your success in establishing an OCM practice. Be sure you have that active and visible executive sponsorship, dedicated change management resources, structured change management approach, employee engagement and participation, frequent and open communication, integration and engagement with project management, and with middle managers. So with that, I am open to any questions and any discussion that you would like to have. I would also offer out that all the participants have access to the slide deck, and at the end of the deck, I actually have a ProSci document which you are welcome to utilize, which is a sample kind of pitch or presentation that you could take to your company leadership in support of establishing an OCM practice or pilot. You're welcome to utilize that. It's kind of a fill-in-the-blank approach, and I think and hope that you will find it very helpful. Jill, any questions, or audience, any questions?
We have nothing within the chat feature, but everyone is, of course, open to unmute their line and ask any questions that they may have. We also have the opportunity after this session, if you have any questions, we have our contact information there, info@nrconsults.com, or you're welcome to call the phone as well to answer any questions that you might have in regards to this presentation. As Tom mentioned, we will share the slide deck with you. In addition, we are recording this and we'll be putting it out on our website, which is the nrconsults.com website, in case you would like to see the presentation again or perhaps pass it on to members of your organization. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you making the presentation. Very comprehensive. Really do appreciate it. And if there's no questions, we will end the webinar, and thanks to everyone for attending.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or if I can provide any assistance. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.